Welcome to the 11:30 panel.
Question answered.
In this corner.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as I think you all know, we're excited about this topic, and we're especially excited not only to have Team Maureen and Matt on the panel, but to have some true experts in the scene who feel like they might be able to accurately talk about this topic, and Alan and Maria. And, as you know, we're gonna talk about the assault on Ghenjei, and as I wrote in the description, what we lost and what we gained. So I'll let each of the panelists introduce themselves. Alan?
Hi, I'm Maria Simmons. I'm part of Team Jordan.
Okay, I'm Alan Romanczuk, also part of Team Jordan.
Hey, Sarah.
I like theirs.
I'm Team Maureen number 2, Sarah. I'm Team Maureen number 1, Kristy Pew.
And Sarah also was Maureen in the trailer.
Town Cottingham.
All right. What does the computer say, Matt?
Clearly, so I look smart.
It's not working.
Seriously, there's just a picture of a baby sucking his thumb on it.
I don't think Facebook's appropriate.
Where do you want to start?
Oh, sure.
I like Finns. So the Finns have always been a fascination of mine. I enjoy anything that's not in the real world, which I guess makes it good for fantasy. So I really enjoyed the Finns, and I think I remember back in JordanCon we had all sorts of questions. We wanted to know if the Finns and if they had souls and such. And Robert Jordan actually gave us a lot of answers to questions like that, which we were really surprised about. The fact that the Finn world is a parallel world, the fact that Finns do have souls and such. Questions like that were fascinating, and they added to the canon, and they added to kind of, well, our ability to come up with even crazier theories. So what I'd really like to do, I guess, is really just open this up to your questions, you know, kind of thoughts you guys might have. You have two very esteemed fellows, lady and fellow, next to me here, and they know so much about this topic, I'm sure, much more than I do. So I'd like to open it up to the panel to you guys and talk about, obviously, what we know has recently happened, and the implications, possibly, of what we just experienced and saw Matt go through. To me, I think Brandon brought this up. Are you guys familiar with the small detail, big impact quote that Brandon had? In essence, he said there's a small detail that has kind of gone undiscussed in the forums and such as he'd seen. That's going to have this big impact, and it's kind of going to surprise people. And then we tried to spend a good amount of time looking for it, and there was some misdirection by Peter accidentally, and none of us focused on this one thing. So I remember reading it, and I was taken aback, and I thought that was Matt's escape from Finland, as we like to call it, was, I think, to me, one of the highlights of the book. So that being said, I'd like to open up the panel to you guys.
I think the highlight of the book was Maureen is back.
Well, of course. And obviously what happened with Maureen. And so there's so much to talk about with Ghenjei and what went on there. I mean, anyway, I just want to open up to you guys and see what you have to say. Yeah.
Is that ready to go?
One of my things that I found most interesting, just as kind of besides the actual events that happened in it, was just how complicated it was navigating in there. I thought that was really intriguing. The whole, it's a maze, it's lost, it's not linear, or it's, keep walking back and forth between what you think are the same rooms to get to someplace completely different, was really not something I was expecting, but something that really completely fit, I felt, with the glimpses we had had of their world before.
And I think that I didn't understand the depth of that either until this book. And then the scene that actually I really liked was when Matt was talking to about her experience there, and just how long that she was actually in the tower. and how she was trying to leave the trail to keep her way going, and still they were, kind of lost.
Yeah.
So you don't understand that depth, and then he has this conversation with her, and you realize like they could be in there for months and never had an idea that that's really what it would be. So.
Yeah.
So who else was in this room was excited, or I guess for me, I loved what ended up being the explanation of Moraine's loss of power. I mean the concept was, none of us, I had never seen it discussed. I mean, the idea that they had actually taken, I don't know what you call it, sucked the power, or leached it, there we go, yeah. Leached this power from her. And it, again, was anyone here thinking that before they read it?
When Lanfear came out weaker, the explanation had to be tied back to where she went.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the end. I think a lot of the, well, we all went to, okay, I went there, and maybe you guys did, the stilling, and then possibly being healed from stilling, and there was a lessening of power potentially. And that was, since there was an explanation out there, or there was a punishment, right?
Or that it was just due to having a new body that couldn't handle that much power.
Yeah, so there's so many concepts that it could have been, right? He could have grabbed, I would have gone with physical one power bridge to the soul with the new body thing. Gone there, I went there, okay. And I would have gone to the stilling, the healing. I would have gone to Dark One's punishment. But it was power leaching from the fins, and I was like, what? That's fantastic.
But I think we kind of had an indication that they were doing something, because Matt's thoughts leading up is like, where did these memories come from? Are they looking through my eyes? I've been there twice. They know me. What's going on? So there was an indication that they were pulling something when you went there.
He even says he feels like it's a feeding off of
Yeah.
your emotion. They're
Right.
pulling
So
emotion.
there was an indication. I definitely didn't expect the power, but there was something there. And when Moraine explained it, it made total sense. It was like, of course.
They played fair with the reader. We had all the clues. We just didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't seem like it was out of the blue. Right? It was just. That's why I was so excited about it, because it did feel. I think does he use the word rummage? I mean, I think he feels that.
Yeah. Sorting through his brain.
Yeah.
We're talking about that scene.
Yeah, exactly. The rummaging, like they got inside. So yeah, all the clues were there. It was just I didn't meet anyone that really was gone there as to what might have happened to Lanfear and to Moraine. So.
And I think another interesting, and I hope it's okay for me to say this, I had a conversation with Brandon after the book came out, and he said that, and I know we don't like to discuss who wrote what in the books, but he did say that this was one scene pretty much left untouched. That Jim had written it, and it was this scene from beginning to end, with the exception of a few minor things, was left untouched. And I thought that was really special, meaningful.
Yeah.
I don't think this was mentioned, but if you look back at the Shadow Rising, if I recall correctly, when Rand goes into the doorway, doorway, there were two doorways, that's right. They do talk about, the saver, because it's been so long since they had somebody that was a channeler come in there, so that was a clue, I guess.
Yeah.
That they were greedy for somebody with the one power to come in there.
Yeah, and they were not only saying, the savor, but the strain, it's too great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what we find out that was referring to was a Taviran being there put a strain on the two worlds, the connection between the two worlds where they intersect.
Matt there too.
And Moraine.
Yeah, Moraine's a different story. Someone who can channel that strongly it doesn't put a strain necessarily on the two worlds, I don't think, but it puts them into a feeding frenzy, like chum with sharks.
Do we know how Morden accomplished the going to Finn world and being able to pull Sidang back out?
how did he convince the Finns to let her go?
We don't know.
I don't think that's a, yeah, it's not, it's a.
Wasn't she not there when we went there?
I thought she
No,
died.
She was.
Yeah, that would be my
Because
guess.
Moraine remembers waking up and seeing a man there and him saying, "This isn't the one I see."
Yeah, so the suggestion is everyone here, what is the belief there? No, obviously you're suggesting that was.
More than that was coming to get Landry. That's how I read that.
Yeah.
I think she died, that's why she's in a different place.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
Morden actually got her out. I think he came in, found her, and then just killed her.
I think he
And
came
then
in
the Dark One was
expecting
able to
her.
bring
No, wait, no,
something.
they say that they sucked her power too fast
Too
and they killed
quickly,
her.
that's what
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when he came
That was
in,
Moraine's
saw
belief.
That's what Moraine said.
Yeah, that's what they.
Yeah, we don't even know if that was true. Or they
Yeah.
were just trying to scare her to
Yeah,
bring more
sure.
fear up that they could feed on.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
don't
Which is
know.
fascinating, yeah, so your question was mainly like, how did Morden get there? Is that what you were asking?
Well, not how it got there, but how he was able to manipulate the situation so much better than anybody else that went into Finland.
Razzle dazzle.
Right.
Well, I mean, so we know Matt goes through, right, so, and it's not easy to get to that room or that chamber or talk to people. So, yeah, how did Morden make,
How did he pull it off?
well, how did he get there? Well, how does he know them? What did he bring? You know, we know there's we know there, yeah, that's a good point. We know there's caches of Terrangrail, they have all sorts of things, so kind of makes you wonder what is it he brought with him for bribery to potentially look for, if that was him, you know.
Right.
Again, I think there's a possibility for it being Slayer too. I think that Slayer is an open possibility too. Sorry, right here.
Yeah, I rather like that at the end that Moraine had been foresightful enough to ask for some things when she went in, because she bargained with them before they took her. So she got that bracelet because she already knew her powers weren't going to be as great once she got out on her own. So she got them to give her Sangria, whatever it was.
Very
It was just a bracelet.
Sangreal like Angreal. It's very powerful, right?
Yeah.
And so on that point, she did have that trip. Now, Brandon, he has me all kind of perplexed now. Ruidian? How do you actually pronounce it? Okay, so I thought that's where he said it was wrong. Okay, Ruidian. Oh, excellent. When she went there, she certainly had, it was good that she had that ability to kind of foresee, you know, have that knowledge, so she did ask the right
Well,
kind of
she'd spent all that time with the wise ones. I don't know if they'd go to sleep every night and they would dream about what was going to happen in the future, and then they'd come out the next afternoon, they'd sit around in the sweat tent talking about what happened, and they kept going back and dreaming and comparing all the different dreams and picking out the best way to go about doing things in the future.
It is an interesting question whether or not they were very aware of what was going to happen to Moraine, whether there was an open conversation, because when Rand is reading the letter, right, after Moraine is gone, who walked in? I thought it was one of the wise ones walks in. Yeah, she walks in and he's saying something about it and she calls him stupid. I mean, she makes some comment like, you just don't, you don't get it, you're a fool. So it does make you wonder if, beyond what Moraine saw in Ruidian of her futures, what else maybe they had discussed with her. But it does also bring up the possibility that Lanfear got her wishes and was held afterwards. Because she says obviously she was held by the Finns. And I did have this question for you guys while you're here. We saw Moraine, I believe, channel the one power, and there was some weirdness about it when she was with the Isle Finns, I believe, for the first time when she was in Tyr. When they went through, we know that Moraine could still channel. Did they have some ability to kind of, I mean, they took her captive in essence. Did they have some ability to stop her from defending herself with the one power?
In that world.
In that world, yeah. Was there some reason why she wasn't in Balefire? I know there's some weirdness about it, because I know when she used it, it was kind of warped, and it wasn't just like, I can do anything. But it seemed like she was still able to channel it.
Yeah, but when she went through, she was in the middle of a fight, she was already weak, and it could be just,
She was caught off guard, or
she hit her head on the floor when she landed, and they were able to bind her before.
Yeah, and I do remember Matt said like the darkness closed in on him. So obviously there's something, they were able to kind of, I don't know, they knocked him out when he went in, or they were able to, it seemed like there's something there where they were able to, but I always wondered why they didn't.
It's such a weird place, and, you know, obviously normal laws of our universe, or, yes, our universe, don't apply there, so it's kind of hard to.
So the imagination is she probably did try to defend herself, but obviously was taken captive in some way.
It's kind of obvious that they can manipulate it, because when he asked for the straight line out, they were able to, for the most part, until they ran into the other guys, give him his straight line out. So they can manipulate the environment.
Yeah.
Who says they can't?
Yeah, there's some
Well,
spots
he says
in
there's not one way in that tower that's like, oh, here you go, just run that way.
But they didn't tell him.
Right.
We do know the physics work differently there, so certainly there must be something how that affects the one power.
What I always thought was kind of maybe she let herself get caught because she knew that she had to get rescued at a certain time, at a certain point by certain people. So if she wouldn't, you know, like maybe one of the visions of the future that she saw was what would happen if she fought and even escaped at that point, and it was bad. So she knew she had to go away from Rand for X amount of time and get rescued by X and X and X person.
Exactly as it happened.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
It had to happen the way it happened.
That doesn't specifically state that she said, that is the only way I'm getting out. If I try anything else, it's not going to.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and she tells them not to, tells Thom not to show Matt the letter until he asks
Yes.
to see it as well, so she knows that there's a certain.
I wondered that same question about Lanfear, why she didn't attempt to. I consider Lanfear much smarter into one power and all the things that could be done with it. So I kind of wonder if maybe Moraine, as they went through, was able to kind of bind her or some way, or won that battle, or she was knocked out and somehow they held Lanfear, because Lanfear was even held by them. So obviously they had some ability to prevent these people from leaving.
Oh, possibly you try to use it, they feed on it.
Sure.
Wasn't it said by Moraine in Shadow Rising that they extremely dislike the shadow? If you ask a question about the shadow, and there's severe repercussions, and if you're a dark friend, you're going to get killed.
That's Moraine's belief. I don't know. I mean, obviously, if somebody was there looking for Lanfear, they're obviously not.
Or Lanfear herself, or Forsaken.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, like, obviously somebody went, Moraine said somebody was looking for Lanfear, you know, and so they let somebody in that was looking for Lanfear. If we believe it was Slayer or Warden or whoever it was. So they were still willing to do a deal with somebody that was apparently not for the light.
And Moraine said that, and, you know, to be able to say it, she had to believe it. But just because she believed it doesn't mean it's really true.
So you had to say it's not true then?
Well, if it's an Aes Sedai tradition, you know, that doesn't still mean, you know, it can have happened that at some point, something that happened with the Dark Friend. But times they don't know about, nothing did. Their knowledge is incomplete. So you can't just take what they say to be.
What they believe. Belief doesn't necessarily make it true.
Right. So if you believe it's true, you can say it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is true.
We don't know.
We don't know.
I say.
He said, so can dark friends go in there safely?
Or at least protect her. But she was also floating like in the air and like couldn't reach out and touch her, you know, was getting hurt. So they have some sort of power because she was floating up in the air, and like, you know, like how did they make her do that without some sort of some sort of house
capability? Or it's wrong because right here first.
Well, I was just thinking, they gave Matt the triumvirate that keeps channeling from touching them from him. Right. If they had that to give to him, it stands to reason that they possibly could have a larger one to keep channeling from happening, like the Guardians at
Yeah, they apparently do have
so
significant access to many items of power.
They were not affected from the breaking, is the way I see it, so they have all the knowledge.
Of course, where Moraine was kept was called the Chamber of Bonds. So one could speculate that, you know, they don't have that ability themselves to do channeling type things, but if they put her in this one position in this chamber, then she's locked in a virtual prison.
Because they still have all the knowledge from before the breaking, so they still know how things work.
One other thing too with her being captured is she's significantly hampered by knowing they're not going to kill her. They're not dark friends. She knows she's not in defense of her life. She has an oath that really binds her from doing a lot of things. Like, she can't bale fire them. She can't throw fireballs at them because they're not dark friends. Shadow, it's not in defense of her life. It's not in defense of her warder's life, because she has seen that they're not going to kill her. It's possible for her to get out.
But she still, I mean, probably felt fear and in danger, so then that would probably...
But it's not, but the oath is in defense of my life or my warder's life.
Well,
it doesn't, you
And I would
can
say
argue
that I think that
she-
goes along really well with, she probably didn't attack them, you know,
Yeah.
so even in defending herself, they had some ability to kind of.
Yeah, she could, you know, wrap them up with air, she could do all sorts of other things. But as we saw with Matt, there's so many of them that, you know, and you know, she could feel threatened, but I could also see, you know, where she might not feel threatened enough to feel that this releases her from that oath, in which case it's just enough bodies and, yeah.
And I think it's important also, I mean, I think it was, as much as this was her journey, like, I feel like Rand also needed to go out and do his thing.
Yeah.
Feeling and thinking and feeling that loss so that he could come full circle and get to where he needed to be. So, you know, and she needed to be there in order to learn some things, so that was another.
Right here, we'll come
Why
back.
should we cut back?
You're talking about Morden or someone in league with Morden going there and kind of knowing how to manipulate the situation. So I was wondering, like, you know, obviously he's the one person that we've seen in the world besides Lanford who we didn't see in the world from the Age of Legends. So that just brings up in my mind, like, what was the relationship between the Finns and the people of the Age of Legends? Like, what sort of, they had like a technology sharing thing, or what was that relationship?
No, again, they're in a parallel world or a perpendicular world, depending on how you look at it. There's no indication that that would be the case. They just do what they do. I should bring up too, there's the possibility that we know about the agreement that's made, no light, no music, no iron, but we don't know what kind of an agreement was made with the dark side, the dark one and his minions. Maybe a totally different agreement, which allows them to come and go.
We'll come back here, we'll come back around, guys.
You know, just talking about Morden and how he possibly could have got in there, I think we all could be in agreement that he's quite a saint. And if they feed off emotion, I think they only would need a little bit of him to be pretty.
It's a very pure drug.
Yeah. 10 minutes of me.
After he gets in, they're like, whatever you want, just get out.
A little too much for them.
That's a good point. We might not have had to bring any trinkets with him.
So, twofold here. If the memories that Matt got from the Elfin were ones that they stole from other people who entered there, would it stand to reason then that the Elfin and Elfin have a huge upwelling of the one power that they've stolen from other people that they could then distribute out as bargain for?
You're saying if they leech it, the one power?
Yes.
I asked Brandon this question if they could give power, and his answer was not in any way that wasn't like we saw with Moraine, where it wasn't by giving them an honor item. That there was no one, because there's a theory out there that Lanford once visited and had been enhanced, their connection, that are one power. And Brandon's answer was that that capability doesn't exist. But they could give them an item of power, but no, but I know, yeah, it's a good question. Certainly a good way to, you know.
Yes, there was one person, one dark friend, who had been going in and out of the tower for years because Perrin chased him into the tower of Ghenjei.
Slayer.
The Slayer.
Well, we don't know that Perrin chased him in. We know that Perrin chased him to, and he went around.
Right.
Brigitte,
it's kind of like, it depends on how you read it. She's either suggesting, well, she says it's harder to get out, you know, but that it's still possible. But yeah, we don't know. I mean, he could have certainly let him there and then left, and then trying to get Perrin to go in, you know. So yeah, it's unclear. Although, for some reason, I can't remember why. Well, anyways, the Slayerism thing. I mean, Lucasm, Slayer.
Well, Hopper keeps telling him not to go in there.
Yes, because again, it's extremely dangerous. Getting out, we know. Brigitte, well, this is a good question. She suggests that it is possible to go into the Tower of Ghenjei in Teleron reality. Is it possible to go into the Tower of Ghenjei in Teleron reality?
All I can say about that. Getting back, you know, there's a very, as we've talked, there's a very important chapter in Dragon Reborn with Varen talking to Egwene about the parallel worlds and the worlds that cross the other direction, and then they talk about Teleron Rhea, and she's a little unclear, and it's not really stated very precisely, but she said that she gave the indication that there was one Teleron Rhea that possibly even surrounded all of these worlds. And an example was given that, you know, look at what you see in dreams sometimes, the weird stuff that you see. So yeah, it stands to reason that even in this world, Teleron Rhea exists. And when you go to dream, you could be in the Finn world for a few seconds and see something weird and wake up.
So, and the reason why, because it almost seems like that's a gateway, like crossroads. You know, I think of that. You walk into the tower and it's kind of a crossroads between. I remember Jim saying that I think he talked about Aelfland itself, and I don't know if these words were differently or whatever. Aelfland, he suggested, was kind of like a steading. I think he once suggested. But Brigitte said that you could enter the tower, so I was kind of wondering, maybe you can go to the crossroads inside, but that's why it's so difficult to get out, because you can't go back out, and then you're stuck at the crossroads. You can't get into the other worlds, and then you're just. So that's why I was wondering: can you go through, but then you can't get anywhere else? You know, you can go in.
Random, and I don't like it just popped into my head, and haven't thought about it much. But wondering if it's possible to get the stone, possibly, and maybe that's how Morden. Maybe he knows of some coral stone or something.
What to get into Finland?
Yeah.
Not likely.
Not likely.
That's the coral stones connect us to the mirror worlds. And would there be a mirror world around the same world? Could you? I mean, yeah, there could be a gentle mirror world, and you could somehow travel between them. Yeah, that's a crazy little route. You know, but Morden, I agree that Ishmael certainly knows. He must know more about. I mean, they speak the old tongue. The suggestion is, I mean, what did he do? He was a philosopher, wasn't he? Anyways, I'm sure he was hitting the books a lot and probably knew of these other parallel worlds, or at least rumor of them. And certainly it would appear either Slayer or Morden or somebody had walked in, and maybe it was they fed off of him. Whatever it is, we got back out. So obviously a little bit better than everyone else, other than Matt. Seemed to read that. So, yes, back there, then we'll come back.
Like he was saying, Teleron Rhea is a constant in all the worlds. Another constant in all the worlds is the Dark One. And if Morden had gone into there, and we know he basically just only uses the true power now, he probably was using the true power there since he has access to the Dark One in that world. And I would assume that it's probably not lessened or warped like the One Power is, because the Dark One is in every world. So if he's in every world the same, he would be in that world the same too.
Yeah, since it's a parallel world, using the true power to travel there might be difficult.
I don't know about traveling there, but while he's there, he could have manipulated, you know. Like,
oh yes, I see what you're saying.
He gets in with,
yeah,
like, that's how he maybe easily got in and out.
Right. He got in and then used the true power, and yeah, I get it. Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
So the other one would be, other than Morden, could be Slayer. And you know, I'm not sure if you had talked, or you know, one of your theories had anything to do with, you know, the melding of Luke and the fact that, you know, when they make an agreement, they're making an agreement with, I guess you could define it as a soul, and the fact that there's more than one soul you know, and he can flip between the two, is that, you know, he makes one agreement and he can flip-flop to, and then he doesn't really have that agreement anymore.
The Slayer and cheat the fence.
Yeah, actually. Are you trying to make this even more complicated?
I like this idea.
You would.
I swore that I'm probably repeating something Theory Land can.
No, that's a fun concept. I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
What if he took one of Esam's eyes? Would we still have both?
Well, I mean, is it a melding, and as it's now one soul, or is it still two? I guess that's really kind of what it comes down to.
I believe we know that it's two souls in one body. So yeah, we're gonna go here, then we'll do a little.
Oh, I don't think it was actually Slayer that got Lanfear, because Slayer is very consistently described pretty much every time he's seen as looking very similar to either Lan or Rand, depending on which of his identities he's using at the moment. Moraine knows very well what both of them look like, and she made no comment whatsoever about it.
Yeah, she did say she was a little bit out of it, but
It was a little like her warrior, wouldn't she have said?
yeah, I mean,
She
she said she was staring. Did she see?
I thought she heard
did
and
she
not
see
saw.
somebody? Yeah, I think she heard somebody. I don't know that she saw them. You know, but that's a good point. If there was some visual, obviously she would have recognized Slayer. That's a good point against Slayer, potentially. Yeah, right here, and then
possible indication, because we have a belief that the Finn have a fairly large number of Durangoral objects of power, and we have somebody that has just shown up with a large cache of them. That yeah, we could have seen a deal here too.
You think Morden went and got the body and some of the
Well, Morden went in and so forth, but they may have had dealings with them.
Sure. Got himself a second dream spike, is what you're saying?
Well, when Grendel comes in there and she's like, oh, is that a shot lance and a Ramakar and so forth, and you got all these objects of power, where did you get them?
In your pocket?
Oh, the old pocket power.
One quick thing first is that the Dark One, his connections to the Forsaken, and he seems to know at the time of their death that they died, which is part of the whole Chinese migration of their souls thing, right? Yep. Is that correct? And which is why kind of Balefire defeats it, because they died before he knows it.
Right.
So it seems that if Lanfear had died while in Finland, he wouldn't have sent anybody in to find her.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Conceptually, I agree that Dane would be a transmigration if she had died. Like, there wouldn't be any reason to send Morden in if Lanfear had passed away. As far as we know, the connection to him, and that, in my belief, I know it's still theoretical in a sense, but that he would know. He would know that she passed.
And then the second thing, which is a question to them, is if there is an agreement between the Finns and the Shadow, is part of it that the Finns cannot reveal anything about the Shadow to anybody, and that's why the people who ask questions about the Shadow don't come out.
Yeah, can't touch the film.
Sounds possible.
Isn't there a prophecy about Lanfear among the early books? And the,
The Mirror Girl? In the Great Hunt? Yeah, there was sorry, we had a hand there. It's not
I have to quote it for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
That Moraine says.
Oh yeah, I just pulled it up too.
Yeah. They claim to have killed Lanfear by draining her too quickly, though I think they may have been trying to make me afraid. A man was there once when they woke me. He said I was not the one he wanted. She hesitated and shivered. Sometimes I wish that they would drain me quickly and end my life.
She doesn't specify.
So she doesn't say that she saw or, yeah, she just kind of heard.
I like how they chatted her up about what they were doing with that.
It sounds, and yeah, it sounds like it could have have just been, she kind of picked up on, maybe it was just a threat, that's not necessarily what happened, but in order for me to feel like that's what they were gonna do to me, that's what they said.
It makes you wonder if they would have known by delving her thoughts that she knew what was happening to her, right? I mean, yeah. So obviously, so I had this kind of fun thought a while back that they were excited for Matt to come back. Oh yeah. They were always looking for him to come back, and that they had set him up to come back, and then everything they knew from Moraine. They pretty much knew. Bring him back. They knew everything.
They knew that.
Yeah. And they were expecting it, and they were kind of getting excited, and they actually wanted Moraine to be there because the idea that he was about to save Moraine, that was just going to amp things. Yeah. Like, oh, you made it all the way here, and you got her. That's right. And you made a deal that you thought you were going to get out. That's right. And and it kind of makes you wonder. If they knew about the staff and they thought it was funny because they never thought he'd figure it out. You know, it was kind of like their ironic, you know, the little wink of, there it was, and you could have used it, because when he does, like, I think it describes it like, there's anger. There's anger from them, like, all of a sudden this, how did this stupid kid that they like figured this thing out and he was going to get away from him, you know. They kind of planted their own seed of loss, although they did it knowing or believing that he wasn't going to figure it out.
We didn't give him any of those memories.
Yeah, here and then we'll again go back.
About Lanfear, I mean, it seems very reasonable about the thing about the Dark One knowing, but what if Moradin came in and either Lanfear died in the process of him figuring it out, or maybe he bargained, take Lanfear's life, knowing that the Dark One could just do the whole soul, put her in a new body, and he got some nice objects of the power out of the deal.
So then why would essentially they tell Moraine this is how we killed Lanfear? Like why would they?
I mean, maybe they just bring their power the rest of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's kind of some fun. There's a fun idea there that he came in and somehow that maybe the pact with the shadow stopped them from killing anyone outright, but the imaginary pact, right? I like basing theories on theories as well. But then with the pact, they couldn't kill her outright, and then Morden comes in and.
Well, he bargains, and then he gets they can just suck the power out of her. And
Morden bargains. I like that anyway. No, did you ever?
Yeah. It's still possible that it could be Slayer in that game because she's thinking that they're lying to her to try to make her afraid and everything. And she says a man comes, and it doesn't say whether she sees him or just hears him. But she might have seen him, and that's why she pauses and shivers, because it looks exactly like Rand or Lan or something, saying that they don't want her, and they want someone else. Yeah. So she could have thought that it was just a setup, and that's why.
It's weird that he wasn't like, yeah, I'm looking for a tall, you know, they're different looking.
The most beautiful woman that ever.
Moraine is known for not always saying everything.
That's true. Yeah,
Me?
Yep.
Okay, I was wondering, what y'all think were some of the things that we gained. That was one of the things in the subject line, and we've kind of talked about, Lanfear and stuff. But what do you guys think? I mean, Moraine obviously asked for 3 things, at least probably. One of them was the Angreal, and at least I don't recall any other things that she mentioned that she asked for. And so I was wondering what y'all think those things might have been, and because there's obviously something very important about her coming back.
What do you guys think? Hypothetically, I'm just saying. You read it the first time. What did you guys
I think all kinds of things. I don't say anything.
You like Moraine?
I don't know that it actually says. Matt assumes that she asked for the Angreal, I think, or does she?
No,
she said he asked whatever she asked for.
And he asked her what else she asked for, she's like, you know what, I'm not
beyond the Angreal, and she says, I shall keep that to myself for now. She doesn't necessarily say, well, I asked for.
I asked for that, but
I asked for that and something else.
I know exactly what was gained, but I don't know if I should say. No, and to run through this, you have to go back a little bit, because I always like to think of the meaning of what these books are about. And to me, the whole Finland environment is the unconscious of the individual. You can get very Jungian now. The unconscious, the subconscious, where we stuff all that stuff we don't want to deal with, we don't want to be conscious about in our lives, the uncomfortable things. And if we look at the characters in the books, not only the three Taviren, Taviren, by the way, has many meanings. One is very similar to the word tavern. And, but, yeah, interesting. But if you go back to Sufi poetry, Hafiz, the tavern was the world. The tavern keeper was God. All right, so these are people with extraordinary abilities. But not only do we have the three Taviren, but the bunch who went into Finland to rescue Moiraine. We have Moiraine, a representation of part of the individual also. In fact, Moiraine is the feminine principle of our hero. And the feminine principle has been buried, has been taken prisoner, has been stuffed out of sight. Isn't that pretty much what happened to Rand? Okay, so these folks go into the unconscious to see what they can pull out of that. The death of Noal Charan. We have to lose something to gain something. We have to destroy a part of ourselves. Noal Charan, Jane Farstridor, was already tainted in the sense that he had sinned greatly, even though it wasn't necessarily his fault. But he was tainted goods at this point. So it's real cool that he was the one who had to die in a very heroic way. So this, the whole Finland thing is the journey into our unconscious, finding a part of ourselves that was missing, gaining new knowledge, and coming out a more whole, integrated person. And that's the meaning. So what was gained? Just go from that abstraction to the material world again, and the answer's obvious.
Wisdom. Good, after this book is finished, this last book, could you write a book or give some lectures?
That sort of depth of thought is really valuable to the reader to be able to understand the story within the story or behind the story. So really, that would be awesome.
Totally made that up.
All right. Playing off of your theory from a couple of minutes ago and then what you said, is it not possible that if the Finn, were delving her mind and knew that they were coming back, that they also really knew that they were going to escape and just wanted it in a certain extent, or probably escape, to look like they really wanted to catch it because they do feed off of emotions, and a near-death running from the big bad monster is going to jack up your stress and fear about as far as they can go. So could it not have all just been, on some level at least, a ploy for a buffet because Matt is Tiberian and apparently having those in Finland for too long not necessarily good thing?
So I like this from the scare him away and have him think he wins kind of concept. They did get his eye. They still don't have any idea. If you recall, it was quite disturbing. They all went around it.
I did like some people last night.
That eye, and I don't know if that's just they're gonna hang that somewhere, throw it in the cave.
Give it to Uno.
They're gonna preserve it to train it to somebody else, or if that eye was wanted by Morden, who knows why. That whole eye and somehow seeing through the eye and the shadow getting Matt's eye, and we have a dream where Raven's plucking it out. And there's so I wonder if there's some, they got what they really wanted, and they didn't really care that he got away, but they kind of wanted to make it that way. And because it's kind of like once the door closed, they were like, high five, high five. Right. And they took off the mask and they're like,
They think there were snakes and foxes.
Was it ravens that plucked his eye out in the dream?
What's that?
Was it ravens that plucked his eye out?
Yeah, I thought it was ravens or something.
Does that possibly link his actions there back to the Sanchen?
Oh, yeah.
Go on.
I don't know how.
Keep going. Don't stop there.
They're very superstitious people.
Yeah,
so-
so and everything, so they may have something about a one-eyed man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To online.
420's gonna be like, nice. You are, man. So, we're kind of running down like 15 minutes or so here, and I know Moiraine is maybe we haven't discussed her enough, because she does get out, and there's a certain calm about her that I really appreciated, and from as much as you might have been making that up is great. What I liked about that is I didn't like Moiraine originally as much as some of them.
You are in the middle, right?
But I did come to really appreciate the fact that she, ran around the Shadow Rising, like you could tell, like she realized, it just wasn't one way to get something done. You had to kind of branch out and make things happen by being a little bit more malleable. And in the end, she's coming back, and I love who she's come back as. And there's a certain calm about her. There's not,
It's not Aes Sedai calm either.
Yeah,
no, but when she like kind of teased Matt, it was different than when she might have teased him back in
Well, she
the
teased
Dragon.
him as
cool
a,
with it.
not an equal, but as someone, as from a place of respect, I think,
Yeah, I like that a lot. And what does she come back with? And it's almost like she's so sure that once she made it back, they were going to be fine.
They were gonna be fine.
Yeah, there's that kind of coming back with, and obviously there's going to be lots of death, and what Fife talked about in the beginning. There's guts and blood and such. But it does sound like she is calm, and it kind of presents this odd. There's so much craziness going on, and Rand and Egwene and all these things going on. But she comes back at the end, and she just seems very sure of herself. So, what did you guys feel about that? What do you think is there a certain piece of knowledge you think she came back with? Did she ask, the same question that Rand asked, and so both she and Rand know that answer of what does Rand need to do to win it? What do I need to do?
She couldn't have asked because I think she was only with the guys who gave things and not answer questions.
Well, again, the wishing, you can always wish for information, for knowledge, so I present it that way, but maybe.
We know what she asked the first time anyway. She did go
No.
No?
Yeah.
No, not everything.
But she'd known that would have been,
Yeah.
Surely you can remind us.
Sorry, I missed that.
You said surely you can remind us. And there is that open question, really quickly, and we'll jump to the questions over here. Will we ever get information about the pact and the questions that were asked later on with the encyclopedia and such? Since that will be
RTEAFOST. Read the encyclopedia and find out. We'll see.
Okay. Well, then we'll run back here.
All right, just building off of what Alan said, Moiraine's come back and, the hero's back in balance at this point. And I think she knows that, I'd be willing to bet that she knows that Rand has succeeded on Dragonbound. Even having not been in the world, I'm certain that moment on Dragonbound at the end of the Gathering Storm was such a shaking point that I'm sure they even felt it in Finland, and I'm sure they felt it in the portal lists. And so I'm certain that she knows that the hero is in balance and that he has become who he was supposed to become. And so she knows that she can go to him and speak with him, and his mind is where it needs to be, and they're going to go to Tarmageddon and do what they need to do.
She said she
Yeah.
Yeah, she asked, yeah.
She did ask Rand and Matt. when she came back, and and she was like, oh, they, supposedly he, couldn't Sidene, and he did this, and she was like, oh, so he did it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but she doesn't seem like
knowledgeable
frantic about it.
She's not surprised, she's very relaxed.
I've got it on Rand, but it's not like, take me out this second, I'll be fine, Rand.
She offered to heal her. She's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
She's kind of quite surprised that he managed to play the thing.
Was she?
What she did?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was surprised.
I think, if you read it, she was surprised that he managed.
I think she asked how he did it. She's like,
She does ask that.
how did he manage that?
She says, she just whispers like, she kind of says, blessed light, how? She's kind of like, okay, how? She knew it was coming, but kind of how did it happen kind of thing, so.
Look, not to put a damper on that, on yay, everything's gonna be okay now, but she went into both of them, so we don't know all the information she got from both of the doorways around her, and then she went into the columns and the rings, and she got information from there, but those are kind of like the foretellings and the dreams and stuff like that, those are only come true if the Dark One doesn't win. So like, in her mind is, we're gonna win now, but like, that's only if the Dark One doesn't win, like, it's...
Yeah, but there's that, she's not frantic,
Yeah.
she's not like...
She's got that
Okay,
calm,
Matt,
it's
get
like-
this go, Tom, okay, thank you for giving me your clothes, that's great, let's go. She's like, all right, cool, let's rest.
But she's a half glass full kind of person.
She's been that way for a while.
And, sorry.
Murray and Alan can chime in on this, but back to what we gained with her being there, do you think she might make an appearance when Egwene and Rand are like next to Tarvalon when they're gonna meet up in that month's time? Do you think that's when she might make an appearance or?
I want to see the look on Rand's face.
I want to see the look on Egwene's face when she comes walking up.
Maureen knew Egwene would get there. I think it's more of a proud moment.
Yeah, it's more of a holy crap.
Yeah.
Like,
She's not going to be like, holy crap. She knew that was evil. And she
I feel like as far as like the questions she was asking, Maureen was always so interested in prophecies and stuff. So
She's gonna be singing, isn't she?
Well, she possibly could have asked for this song.
She does have a good singing voice.
But yeah, so like she would be asking for questions as far as like the last battle or like what the clear.
She came out with the song music.
Here,
Tom, here you go.
The prophecy or what she needed for the last battle, like if it's the song, then she'd ask for this song. It could be. But
I was joking. That's awesome that you were still thinking that. I'm going to include that.
Next year at JordanCon, you're going to do a panel on Bielaczyc musical.
I wish you would have asked for paper and then look it ended, because I'd be right along with you, because she's like writing down the music and how it goes. I like that a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think that you guys are maybe thinking that the calm that Moiraine feels is because she has this confidence that she knows the knowledge she needs for the last battle. But I think what she's doing is actually more personal. And it reminds me of kind of older literature, for instance, Jane Eyre. When Jane Eyre had this sudden windfall of inheritance, and that put her on a status level that allowed her to be with the man that she was destined to be with. And it's kind of how Siuan and Moiraine have both been reduced in the amount of power they have, but that actually increases their chances for personal happiness. Because now she doesn't have to shoulder the level of burden that would be appropriate for her level of power. And that's exactly the lesson that Rand needs to learn, is that the distribution of the fighting effort is something he can't shoulder the entire burden by himself, and if he leans on his friends, even if there's someone like Moiraine who's not as powerful as she once was, that is actually what Rand needs to do to be successful.
The other thing I'm thinking too with the calm is that she wasn't sure Matt could get her out. She was seeing, thousands of ways he could fail if he brought too many people, if he came too early, if he brought too few people, if he didn't do the right things, if he did the right things in the wrong order.
So I feel like kind of what she knows now is that, okay, she can't be sure Rand is still going to win, but she knows that thousands on thousands of ways that he could have failed up to this point haven't happened. She doesn't know, he's cleansed Satan, but she knew that one of the ways he could have failed is by not cleansing Satan, falling to the taint and the madness. There's all of these things that could have failed. She doesn't necessarily know that he will, that he will get to the last battle now, but there's so much, so many ways that it could have failed that she knows because this happened, because I was rescued, that means so many other things have already gone right.
Almost
It's like a relief.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's just like, okay, we've checked off 1 through 6. Now we can go on to 7. Yeah, exactly.
If I'm here, obviously it hasn't gotten that bad yet, kind of thing.
It is amazing when you consider, so that was kind of, we always talk about tying off threads. Okay, so we got that happened, that's good. It did open up a bunch of new threads. What did Lanfear get when she went through? Because there's no reason to believe, because it seems according to the pact, and it seems Moraine got her wishes, that Lanfear would have got hers and then been held by the Finns. What did Lanfear get? And what is that? What threads are opened up there, that are new and
Lanfear didn't plan.
What's that?
She didn't plan.
Yeah.
Moraine and Matt planned what they were going to ask for before they went in.
True, but Lanfear may have been sharp. She may have asked for the ability to go into other people's
I
group.
think Matt planned, but didn't he get frustrated and just start shouting out things?
They weren't giving answers, yeah.
I'd be surprised. Yeah, he got a couple of them.
Matt was just supposed to be enough just having to shout the right things out.
Well, I wouldn't say she knows the old Thom and
That's my favorite character.
You say you hate Matt.
Hey, you said you didn't like Moraine at first.
At first, that's all I'm saying. But back to the Lanfear thing, she knows the old tongue, and I'd be totally surprised if Lanfear did not know the Finns or about them and have some ability. Like, I'm sure when she went through the doorway, she wasn't like, what's mine? I mean, I'm sure she knew exactly where she was, and when they talked to her, she knew how to speak to them.
Yeah.
And I'd be surprised if she didn't understand the concepts behind. Now, whether or not she had some list of, I need to ask for this, 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 and this, and this. Yeah, you're right. She didn't have that. But, and she probably did ask somehow. Remember what they said to Matt? You asked to leave, but you didn't set the price, in essence. That's what they're saying. I certainly think one of hers was probably was to leave. But she didn't maybe know that she had to set the price. So that's how they helped her.
Wasn't Lanfear in a violent, passionate rage when that happened?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
She was in a violent, passionate rage.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, but they don't immediately jump into that room and start asking them questions. Once we're assuming they were somehow split or somehow they were, because Moraine doesn't seem to know what Lanfear might have done. I think she says something like, I don't know what happened to her beyond what they were telling her. She could
have foreseen it in one of those triangular that she went in and countered it with what she asked for.
That's true.
Or maybe attempt to at least.
Yeah, I wonder how much though in the rings she could potentially see anything that doesn't affect her. Well, yeah, she saw Matt.
It's the difference between, knowing there are genies that grant wishes and knowing, well, tomorrow I'm going to go in and, be confronting this powerful thing that will grant wishes and try to twist it and have a plan.
She's smart. She really
I'm pretty sure Rand was on her mind, so.
Voting was on her mind.
Probably whisper for a way to kill Amienda.
Yes.
If you want to kill Amienda and Elaine, like all three of them, that's what.
Ignore this first.
Given, her obsession with Rand and the Luz, could it be possible that something she asked for had to do with getting him, and obviously Lanfear the Forsaken is not going to get Rand, but maybe Sindane, who he doesn't know, could have a chance. Like
I think
changing.
he would recognize her as he's, you know, who is there, and I think he would recognize her as her, maybe.
Novel question. If I ask for something, if a character like Lanfear asks for something, can they ask for things that are unrelated to them? And would those things happen immediately, or could they happen immediately, even if they hold the person? So let's say I ask for it to rain. Could they make it rain potentially while I'm being held by them?
Okay, Matt.
And being as in Lanfear could have potentially asked for things, and we've seen repercussions of what she asked for happening, even though
Killing his brother.
no. That was not my so I think we have to end here. So let's do really quick right here is
Could she have asked to give Avienda the ultimate despair? You know, somehow they manipulate the
She is vindictive. Sick question.
Write that one up. That's what I'm saying. That's a good one. I really like that a lot. And last one. And Scott, you're going to go.
My favorite line from Lorraine coming back was, "You accidentally married the Shasha."
This one accidentally married.
We can talk about Matt getting his hands in, and Thom, and there's so much to talk about.
Reacted to that.
There's so much to talk about games last year. Can we go for another 15 minutes?
I'm fine. You guys can. I'll ring about the seat, but then stay. I'll make the announcement that in a half hour, the next panel is Black Tower, Red Blood, and we'll look at what's going on in Andor at the Black Tower. But yeah, go ahead and continue if you want.
Would you like to continue?
Yes.
Okay, no last questions. Let's hit the last theory panel. It's going to be like that. Sorry, you brought the Sean show. Yeah, I love that. I love her line there. How
do you accidentally do that? Not freaking out about the Sean.
Yeah. More like an answer.
Okay,
this might be a little overly basic, also for the panelists involved, but wasn't she stabbed? Wouldn't medical treatment be one of the wishes, probably?
Oh.
Didn't Moraine, it wasn't just an assault that pushed her through the door, right? Didn't she actually attack?
Yeah, she tackled her. It was like a rugby sort of tackle.
So she would have been okay.
And we do know that she still had, well, again, I mean, she still had power. It was produced, obviously now we have reasoning for why Sindane were reduced, but it wasn't something else.
There's also the thought that, she doesn't need to ask for medical attention if she's planning on being captured, because they're not going to want her to die before they can drain her.
By the way, think about how much power...
That's a bold campaign, I'm just saying.
Think about how much power Lanfear would have had to have had. Have it drained, and to still be Sindane, who I believe was still considered fairly powerful.
Just seeing what people think about. There's an assumption being made here that questions need to be asked, and answers given, and wishes asked for and granted. Maybe none of that is true. Remember back, way back, I guess it was Moraine said, I think, you can't go through twice.
Right. So maybe Lanfear had already gone through at one point?
Maybe Lanfear had gone through at one point. I mean, maybe the whole purpose, once they went through that red doorway, they went into that unconscious state immediately and woke up in this prison-like place in the Chamber of Bonds.
They say that each person doesn't have their own kind of reality inside that. Like, they both went through, but they both, immediately woke up in different places, different places.
Sure.
But tried to go through it. It was just like, so it seems like the Lanfear, she would have gone flying out the other side.
That's what I was thinking. If Lanfear already got through, you can't actually go back. Because Moraine pushed Lanfear through first,
We need some figurines, but if Lanfear had already gone through, she should have just crashed right through the
Because
doorway.
when Matt tried to go back to the red one a second time.
You can talk about me all you want.
So, go ahead. What do you know the folks you talk about?
Well, I would like to know how many people were surprised by the relationship and the budding relationship and then the proposal, and then ultimately, you know, how much do you have to love someone to reach through fire for them?
Actually, kind of made me gag at the moment. But it's both typically Robert Jordan.
It made you gag.
Yeah, it was like,
The moment where he put his arms in
again,
fire?
happy ending.
I got chills.
When he put his arms in fire, you gag?
No, afterwards, when Roman.
Are you 12? What would you know? Tom, comments?
Well, I think maybe one of the other panels had said that it was just so quick. Like, and I think you did. There was definitely foreshadowing all the way from the beginning about the two of them. And the fire sequence was great. But when we got out, I guess just the pace of the book, it was just like, hey, I like it.
It was a very. Darius talked about that. Like, I always wanted it to be symbolic. There was stuff about that. I was like, pulling out a fire. Okay, that's not going to be. Like, I actually appreciated it. I was like, oh wow. And I wasn't going for there, like, oh, and it was.
That was a good.
Yeah, that was, I thought that was. It was really well set up, and well done. That was definitely in that. You get later on where they're having their heart to heart.
And
that's
Matt's
pretty. Yeah. Well, the fact that Matt did not notice is, that was typical Matt. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, really was. He's kind of self-absorbed.
We also haven't talked about what we lost as well, kind of gain, talk about gaining what we lost, or the one left behind.
That lost depth of perception.
was yeah, Jane and Nolan, and not only did he sacrifice, but just kind of how that was written. That was there were two parts that I read where I had to put the book down and walk away. That was one, and Matt's letter to Elaine, because I couldn't. I was laughing.
That was funny. I mean, for me, that part was, like redemption. It mirrored that, when Ingtar went.
Yes.
His redemption. That was one of my favorites. That was, one of the moments where I also had to close the book and just kind of absorb it, because it's such a beautiful thing. This, the ultimate sacrifice is your life, and what a life to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Setting us up for the final comeback. Slam for you. We know she's going to. No, yeah, go ahead.
Well, this isn't about Jane, which was tragic. But speaking of losses, Lanfear, I'm confused about the Lanfear dying, not dying. If she didn't die, why does she have a new body? Less power.
Oh, you want to talk about theories specific to how is the Lanfear Sindane? By the way, I'm so great that there's some people that don't believe Sindane's Lanfear. I love that we're all saying Lanfear.
I'm just confused about that whole death.
Do you have a comment on that? Or?
Yeah, kind of. I think it relates back to what Morden got and perhaps what Lanfear got in that sort of not setting the price precisely way.
Yeah, maybe.
She gets to leave, but she doesn't get to leave the way she thought she was going to.
The way she wants to.
And that would be why she doesn't die and just get reborn by the Grey Lord. She just gets transmigrated by the Fid, and they're like, screw you, buddy.
So I would say that was going to the transmigration. We asked Jordan the transmigration question. I think we asked Jordan that, and he said the Finns do not have that capability to transmigrate. So they don't have the ability to hold a soul, grab a soul like similar to the Dark One, and don't have the ability to transmigrate.
Yeah, the Dark One does. I think it's not terribly important ultimately, and we'll never know 100%. But you can also very easily just read it on the face. Yeah, Lanfear was killed. They overjuiced her. And, okay, so she's dead.
That's a great metaphor.
She's dead, and the Dark One now takes her soul, puts her in a new body, and boom, that's end of story.
Did anyone notice we've all said Dark One and he just said Great Lord?
Yeah, it's about that. Or is it?
Yeah, I guess I always, or when I read it, I assumed it wasn't Morden that was going in to fetch her. I always assumed it was Slayer going in to hit her, like kill her. As in like, this is just, I'm going to be kind of mean because you were upsetting and not following the plan, so I'm going to make this a little unpleasant for you.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, I always took last chance that this was transmigration.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That she would have been transmigrated by the Dark One after she was killed.
Yeah, because didn't Lamb was, I mean, well, Eden was like, Tel'aran'rhiod was my world, but I think Lamphere also had a great control, so maybe Slayer was, you know, like, I'm going to be king of this, and went in and killed her.
Yeah, he'd offer it.
Yeah, because he wanted
He
it.
likes the rule there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that matter, building on that, he could have gone in there, or Slayer or Morden, whoever could have been, could have gone in there and killed her so that they could get Lamphere back without having to deal with them.
I got you.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it seems at this point, I mean, the most logical thing, I know I'm saying logical, I apologize. If I was to have logic and I was to say most logical, it would seem like she was killed, or died, or was killed in some way, and was transmigrated, and the power differential we see is pretty much what they juiced her. Juiced her.
That's going down to the technical term.
Yeah.
Encyclopedia.
What about Rand seeing a mirror in the end of the So maybe that's a clue for what happened to her.
Oh, she was talking about when the dream scene at the end of the book, my favorite scene of the book.
I'm just going to sit here and be quiet.
And that might be going, we have lots of fun with that one. Last theory panel today, I think we should talk about that piece a lot. That's a fun, that has a lot of, there's a lot of possibilities of what's happening there. So that would be a good, let's start with that one. We'll start with that one at the last theory panel. Are you going to be there? Excellent.
I'm not sure.
It's not really the last anyway.
Yeah, but the last.
My question, like if they juiced her too fast, why then would Sindane have such a small power differential from Lamphere? Would it be like, you know, if you're pulling too much of the one power at one time, you're not necessarily channeling everything you have, because that's impossible, but you channel it too fast, you blow out or you burn out. Would it be like that, like they killed her because they're drawing one power through her into themselves? Or I guess my question is just, why isn't Sindane much weaker than Lamphere or even still?
But remember, it only says that they claim they did that. We don't know if that's what they really did. So.
But you could also speculate. You know, they juiced. What?
You know that's
official. They juiced Moiraine 75%. They only juiced Sindane 50%, but they did it too fast. So
it seems like
so the fuse
Coleman, like he drew in way too much one power too fast, just blew up. But he came back. His soul is preserved. He's Rand. He's still as powerful.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying
that wasn't a feeding.
I got what you're saying. You're saying what's the difference between what
when they're feeding off of her, are they pulling the one power through her as a conduit, or are they just eating? Like
they're eating
so
the
this
conduit.
is a good question.
So.
Take Moiraine. Let's pick Moiraine as an example. Then it's gonna be a good question for our two panelists over here. Moiraine, we know that she only has a certain access. So when the soul of Moiraine is reborn in, say, another age, will her soul still be
at that 25%?
At that 25%? Or will she? Is it just a kind of a something that happens in this life?
I forgot the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
How about same kind of thing? If your soul, or if you are completely burnt out, or they juice you 100%. Will you be able to channel at all?
Yeah, we know that. We know that answer. So when I think about it, we know the burned out, you're not always burned out.
Yeah, because
we know. So that the likelihood is then if you're not always burned out.
Well, how many times has Moraine's soul, gone around the wheel as the ages spin? And if it was permanent, you would think that would mean that Moiraine has been through this before. or something, depending on how exact the ages coming in is. As
The wheel can certainly grab a different soul.
Yeah, but you'd think it would be. I wouldn't think it would be permanent to be able to.
Yeah, but I mean, you're coming back in different lives in a different age.
Yeah.
You're not going to be the same person. You're not going to necessarily have the same set of skills or strengths or anything.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's totally unrelated.
Well,
when you're being reborn.
The thing that makes me think that there's at least some connection is the, Luz Theron, Rand, obviously not.